Try it again. If you get a songbook, we'll have a few stragglers straggling in. We'll sing them in. We'll sing them in. Bring it in. Glad to see you. Appreciate you being here. We'll sing number 676. 676. Sing them in. 676. We'll sing the first, third, and last verses. There's within my heart a melody, Jesus whispers sweet and low. Here I am with thee, peace be still, in all of life's ebb and flow. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go, feasting on the riches of His grace, resting neath His sheltering wing, always looking on His smiling face. That is why I shout and sing. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. Soon He's coming back to welcome me, far beyond the starry sky. I shall wing my flight to worlds unknown. I shall live with Him on high. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this beautiful day that You've given us, for our health, for our safety, for the opportunities that we've had throughout the day. And now we're so thankful we can gather together and consider Thy Word and eternity and the things that we love to hear about who are outside the fold of safety in Thy church. And we pray that You might have us or help us to do what we can to encourage them to do the right thing. We pray that whatever might happen, it might be to their turning their lives back around or turning their lives over to Thee. We pray that You might keep us safe, help us to hold on to our faith. We pray that You bless this land, that we might maintain our freedom and have the privilege and the opportunity to serve and worship Thee. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. You got paid for it, though, right? That's all that matters. Good to see you. All right, John chapter 13, where we're at tonight. John chapter 13. And it begins. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that His hour was come, that He should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved His own which were in the world, He loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray Him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into His hands, and that He was come from God and went to God, He rising from supper, laid aside His garments, and took a towel and girded Himself. After that He poured water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith He was girded. Then cometh He to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto Him, Lord, dost Thou wash my feet? Jesus answered said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto Him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And ye are clean, but not all. For He knew who should betray Him. Therefore He said, Ye are not all clean. David, you want to read 13, 12?
So he washed her feet, and taken him from and sat down again, and said to them, what I said to you, ye call me Master and Lord, and you say, Well, for I am so. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash the feet of one another. For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done. Further, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he who sent him. If ye know these things, after ye do them. I speak not to you all, I know one of you whom I chose, but the scripture hath to be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me, lift up his heel against me. Now I tell you before you come, that when it is come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. Brother, let us say to you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. When Jesus had thus he loved Jesus was he loved the disciples whom Jesus loved. Some appear therefore expecting to him that he should ask who is he, but whom he should faith. He then lightened his bread and said to him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, He it is to whom I should give salt when I did it. And when he had dipped the salt, he gave the Jews to carry the son of Simon. Whenever the salt, Satan entered into him, and then said Jesus to him, That thou doest, go do quickly.
Now no man at the table, when he went with him, he spake this unto him. For some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, Buy those things that we would need of, give it to the feast, for that he should give something to the poor. He then having received the salt, went immediately out, and it was not. Therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. Little children, yet a little while I am with you, and shall seek me. And as I said unto the Jews, Whither I go, you cannot come. So now I say to you, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another.
But this shall men do, that you are my disciples, you love one another. You have loved one another. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whither goest thou? Jesus answered him, Whither I go, thou canst follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterwards. Peter said unto him, Lord, I will not follow thee now. I will lay down my life for thy sake. Jesus answered him, Wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow, till thou hast denied me thrice.
Very good. Thank you very much. Number one, describe the extent of Christ's love for the apostles. Verse number 1. How would you describe Christ's love based on verse number 1? What's that say? Endless, all right. All the way up until he died. So we see within him a situation where he didn't grow up with them. They weren't family, although some of them were cousins in some form of fashion. But they had an association, or Jesus had an association with them. And it was a binding situation where he loved them to the extent that there was nothing that stood in the way. And so we're looking at Jesus' example of what love is, and it really gets into great detail as far as from here on out, as far as how Jesus lays down his life from that point forward. But it says from the beginning to the end. Were there times where Jesus might want to have not loved some of the apostles? You know, they were bickering, fighting about who was going to be the greatest. They did all live right. They did things that they weren't supposed to do. So he had the same challenges that we've got as far as loving people as deeply as we should, even though they aren't doing exactly what sometimes what we think they ought to do, and sometimes not what they really ought not to be doing. So, love doesn't end despite circumstances that are outside our control. But I guess that brings up something in my mind that I don't have written down here. Sometimes love has to be, what you say, a hard love. Sometimes we have to say or do things that are not fun or appealing or that sort of thing, but in a loving, with love in our hearts, we have to say and do things that are a part of life. And so a lot of times, especially when it's difficult, we want to say that that's not love, to try to correct or instruct people in the way of righteousness sometimes. Number 2, what is meant by Satan put into the heart of Judas to betray Jesus? Verse number 2. Can somebody please explain to me exactly how Judas did it? Can opener?
We just told him some things that suggested. I don't think he
operated the same way on Satan that he would on you and me, doesn't he?
Yeah. In our cause.
And so how did he do it? What was Judas's weakness?
Money.
What did Satan lay out before him?
Money.
So we could say that Satan put it into his heart by providing the opportunity, or Judas putting himself in a position where he had that opportunity there. That's basically what it gets down to. You can look at that and look at it and try to say, well, this is what Satan did, this is how Satan operates. But all it amounts to is we all have a weakness or propensity to certain things in our lives, and that's what Satan operates on. It's where we're weakest or what we're most likely to fall into. That's where he's going to come at us, and that's how that is all takes place. It says, every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust in James. So we understand that. Number 3, how had God given all things into Jesus' hands? I think that's verse number 3. All right, he had all authority. If you give the kids or the grandkids $50, and say spend it how you want to spend it, and they start spending it in all this sort of way, and you start pulling it back, you say, wait, no, you're throwing your money away now. Don't do it that way. Jesus had full control. He had the opportunity, the privilege, and the right to stop it at any point he wanted. There was no demands or force on him at all. God could have placed it in his hands, and he did what he had to do, and he was willing to do it. And I think, yeah, and it was in his hands, and he did it according to what he did. And the commentary on that is the very last part of that verse where it says that, and that he was come from God and he went to God. He knew from the beginning to the end what the whole situation was and why it was laid out the way it was and why it had to be. Number 4, what was Peter's reaction to Jesus going to wash his feet? Verse number 6. All right. Why would he feel that way? He made the great confession, you are the Son of God himself. He knew that his master, he used that phrase. He said, are you going to wash my feet? He knew that he was the master, so he recognized the stature of people, the position of people, the way that mankind thinks. There's people that are in authority or in high standing or important or whatever it may be, and he recognized that Jesus was not to be one that was to be in a position of servitude. And I'm sure that even with the heart of these men, as we've seen them and read about them in the scriptures, that they probably had an attitude towards people of a low estate. As far as estate was concerned, it was even more prevalent back then in this society with servants and masters and that sort of thing than it is today. So he completely refused that to be done to him by one who should not have to humble himself and do it. Number 5, what was Jesus' response to Peter's refusal to be washed?
You don't know what I'm doing.
You don't know what I'm doing, but if I don't do it, then what? You have no part with me. You can't have anything to do with Jesus unless you submit to this that Jesus is doing. Is this talking about baptism?
But Jesus tells us to do something. We may not understand everything about it. Our job is to get it done.
Right. And as far as this is not directly talking about baptism in the sense of this is an allusion to it.
You have to bring lesson in the Bible.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand the washing of baptism, and yet Jesus didn't do it, so we do it. We understand it to a great degree because the scriptures teach that that's where you contact the blood. So that's what he's saying, though, is talking. And the next question says, what would we learn from Jesus' statement? Just the feet? Peter, after Jesus says, all right, well, if you're not going to let me wash your feet, then you can't have anything to do with me. You can't be a part of what's going on here. And Peter's immediate response when he understands what Jesus is saying is this is something that you have to do or have to learn. And if you don't do it or learn it, then you can't be a part of me. And we understand it to be that Jesus was teaching humility and submission with what he was trying to do here. Peter understood that. And then he goes and says, my hands and my head also. And Jesus says, it's just feet. What can we learn from that?
He says that it's not Steve not to say the word Steve, it's in your witness.
Okay, so
a lot of people have got a lot of comfort without sprinkling something. Not reading just their way.
how's that?
You need not wash their whip.
Oh, okay. I see. You sprinkle a little on them instead of get them all wet.
Sprinkle it, that's just good.
Well, I was looking at it from the standpoint of what Peter said. Peter said, my hands and my head. Jesus says, no. So that puts a limitation on, what Jesus was wanting to be done. Peter wanted to add something to it. And Jesus said, no, there's no need for adding. And so he didn't do anything. And so I thought, and it kind of goes down in the same direction you're talking about, is people want to add based on what they think about it. But you can look at it and say, Peter, you're not going to add anything to this. You're going to do it exactly like Jesus said do. So. Question number 7. Did Jesus wash Judas' feet? Look hard. Look real hard.
Verse 12 says yes.
Verse 12. Oh, okay, let's see here. What's the verse here? So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and sat down again, he said unto them, know ye what I have done to you? I don't see Judas' name in there.
I don't see John's name.
Well, how do we know? Judas was getting ready to betray him. How do we know Jesus washed Judas' feet? He washed all their feet. Judas was still among those people there. He had not pointed out who he was, so we can, I believe, correctly assume that as a part of the group that Judas got his feet washed. Jesus did not withdraw his kindness or his lesson or whatever it may be to Judas, even though Jesus knew exactly what he was going to do. How does that work as far as human nature is concerned? People mistreat me, and I'm not going to do anything good for them. Y'all better be nice to me if you expect me to do anything nice for you. When people act bad, I'm going to get mad, mistreat them, whatever it is. That's usually human nature to a great degree. But the scriptures, and Jesus gives the example here in applying it to Judas, but the scriptures also teach that we do good to people, and thereby heap coals of fire upon their head. Not that we want to shame them or anything, but we want to point them in the right direction as far as what is the right way to act. I think if you look at history, and you look at, especially in the Middle East, we've got a bad situation. They've got a bad situation in the Middle East because it goes all the way back to somebody's great-great-great-grandfather killed their great-great-grandfather, and so it's been retribution all the way down through history, and even to today, it's still retribution for an action that was taken a long time ago. And so we see how destructive it is when people withhold kindness or don't treat people the way that they ought to treat them just because they're not acting the way that they ought to act, or they're acting bad as far as that goes.
So, they had that Tales in the Chorus back like 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago.
I think that's probably a lesson that applies as well. I don't know exactly. That was probably in our country. What did the Hatfields and McCoys? It might have been the Hatfields and McConnells. I don't know.
Because I know I saw one story about that. They interviewed some people saying, hey, what was going on? And so, you always hate it.
Yeah, I say that's it.
Whatever and why.
Yeah. And that's what it is. After you get to a certain point, you don't even remember what you're fighting about. That can be true in personal relationships and family relationships and national relationships too. So sometimes you just got to patch it down. Number 8, what 2 religious actions are expressed here in verses 13 and 14? It says, you call me Master and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. I saw within these 2 verses 2 actions that are involved in Christianity. You see them? We understand the second one pretty easily, right? What's washing the feet mean? Service. Right. Yeah. What about Lord and Master? What's that? Call me Lord and Master. That's the action of worship or honor or as far as Christianity. So when we look at Jesus, I see in it 2 different things that are applicable to us as far as Christians. The first one is worship. Honor of Jesus Christ as Lord and Master, but also the second one, which is that of service. And a lot of times people look at Christianity or a member of the church or whatever as the worship end of it, but they fail to see the service side of it. And that's the hard lesson that Jesus was trying to teach these men right here who had been closest to him. Even up to this point, just not very long before this, they were arguing about who was going to be greatest when the kingdom came, who was going to be on the right hand or the left hand, and who was going to be greatest. And so they were constantly going about the things that they thought were most important, and worshiping God is not to belittle that or to say anything about it, but there can be no true worship of God without the service side of it as well. And a lot of times people fail to recognize that.
Today, some places where you have a corporation where the boss will get in there and do work just like regular people do in other places. And up here, all that stuff.
Yeah, I was listening to somebody tell a story about work and said there was something that had to be done in one part, and one of the ladies said, I wasn't hired to do that. And that's the kind of attitude that people have. And it wasn't anything difficult to do. It was just somebody pitching in and helping out. Not my job.
Or what's saying that unless you're a union job.
Yeah. But it's an attitude of heart. I've known some people that work harder at avoiding work than it would take to get the job done.
Have you ever seen a show or heard about Millionaire Next Door?
Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah.
No.
I think I read some stories about some people that they don't share their vast wealth. They'll slip the record. But if you're house next door, drive to the floor, and not have a chauffeur, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Wake up one day and found out that, hey, my neighbor passed away. I looked this way. He's a millionaire. He was a millionaire and they never knew it.
Yeah. What is it? Walton? Same.
Well, that's right.
They'll pick up.
Anyways, his father. His dad. Yeah. Like when his all kids became millionaires because of the area part of nothing. Yeah, they did that.
Things change, that's for sure. But we see within this that there are 2 aspects that we need to be aware of and be participating in as far as our Christianity is concerned. The first is the worship or honoring of Jesus Christ as the Lord, and then serving. And that's done through serving. We serve Jesus and serve others. Serve Jesus through serving others. 9, what did Jesus say would make the apostles happy? 16 and 17. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither is that he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them. What did Jesus say would make the apostles happy?
They did what they were doing.
specific situation, he's talking about something. In the context of John 13, here in 16 and 17, go back up to 15. I probably should have included that in it. I have given you that you should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say to the servants, not above the Lord, neither he that is sent above greater than he that is sent him. If you know these things, happy are you if you do them.
All the church needs to know that there are no Christians above service. Brother to others.
And he was giving the example of service there.
You come through time to wash my feet. It may be a little smelly job. If you remember,
I can take it. I can take that. That's as far as it goes. I'm pretty good. We get a little further than that, we'll have to start.
I should put that seriously.
But what I was wanting to see here is, or say here is, it said happy. If you know these things, happy. A lot of times we stop at if we know these things, we're happy. But Jesus concluded that the happy part was being in the doing. Sometimes that's hard as far as growing to the point where that happiness is. At some points, this service thing infringes on what you and I have in mind as far as our daily lives are concerned.
A Christian has no greater joy than to know he's done what the Lord has done.
And specifically in service is what we're pointing out here. This is the whole gist of what Jesus was trying to teach here, is the necessity of being a servant and doing those things that a servant does, and that's what makes you happy. That's not human nature. What do we think? I mean, even the preamble, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so that makes it a right of ours to pursue happiness. Jesus says that what will make you happy is service to others in the name of Christ. And the world doesn't see it that way. And it's a big leap in your spirituality when you do have joy or get joy from doing for others, benefiting others. Sometimes people don't appreciate what you do. Sometimes people take it for granted. You know, there's all kind of obstacles to keep us from having the right attitude and doing the right thing. But Jesus gives us the example here. And if we're being like Jesus and doing what Jesus says do, then we will reap the benefits of what He's promised here in being happy. Number 10. Why did Jesus tell the apostles He was going to be betrayed? Verses 18 to 19. No, why did He tell them? All right, very good. I was looking specifically for the, and you will believe. What's the theme or John? That you might believe. So we see here, Jesus told us He's going to be arrested, He's going to be tried, He's going to be beaten, He's going to be crucified, He'll be dead in the grave. And all these hopes and dreams that they had will be dashed in pieces. And everything that they thought was going to happen is going to end. And so they were going to be down in the dumps. They were going to be heartbroken. They were going to be disappointed. There was going to be all kinds of things that were going bad in their lives at this particular point. He says, I'm telling you this so that when it happens, you will believe. Can we take that and apply it to ourselves?
Yes.
How?
So we can believe.
All right, well, I'm just thinking about it. We all run into situations and issues in life where they're discouraging. They bring us down. If we understand the Scriptures and the truth of the Scriptures, then we have something to look beyond that. And that's what Jesus was saying. Believe in what I've told you, and then it'll get you through until whatever it is over, or the end of time comes, or whatever it may be. Number 10, what troubled Jesus? Verse 21. specific about that. All right? One of his closest associates, one of his nearest allies, the scriptures, and I meant to look it up and I didn't, it says his own familiar is how it is portrayed in the Old Testament as far as the prophecy is concerned. Jesus was human. He had someone that he had handpicked, somebody he had seen and dealt with, and there were some good things about Judas, I'm sure, as far as that goes.
I think we've all had experience where we've been up with somebody, a friend, and they disappointed because they did not act.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. In a nutshell, you just wrapped it all up. I appreciate you doing it. The fact is that we depend on people, and people let us down too. And Jesus, being human, reacted to it in the same way. It troubled him just as much as it would trouble us to have somebody turn their back on him and mistreat him. All right? Number 12, what was the reaction of the apostles to the statement, one of them would betray him? Verse 22. All right? Just couldn't believe it. Jesus had told them over and over and over again. They still didn't believe it. There's a lot of things that we read in the Scriptures and we're told in the Scriptures, and as far as if we do certain things, we're going to get certain reactions. If we act in a certain way, we can expect certain things. If we do things that are righteous, sometimes things are going to turn against us. But then when they happen, how do we react? Why? The question is, I'm trying to live right. Why does this happen to me? Well, the Scriptures tell us that this is the way it's going to work out by trying to live right. And so we don't believe it, or we just kind of pass over it, but that's exactly the way it works out. All right, who among the apostles knew that Judas was the betrayer? Verse number 26. Jesus. All right, what's 26 say? Jesus answered, "He it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it." And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. Who was Jesus talking to when he gave that description of who it was going to be?
The only one that knew was Jesus. He knew. John.
If you look at it, it says Simon Peter, verse 24, therefore beckoned to him that he should ask it. It should be of whom he spake. And he, then lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered him. We know that this person that's beside Jesus or by his breast and next to him, as far as that goes, is John, the one that Jesus loved, is described as that. So we know that Jesus told John that, or it didn't tell him exactly, but said, who I give it to, and he gave it to Judas Iscariot. So who knew it? John. All right? We don't know that John told Peter before this, so the only one we know for sure is John knew it. John was writing this book, so we can understand that he knew that to some degree. But any of the others, we don't know for sure.
Are we for sure that John was the only one privately affected? Other apostles,
Well, I think we can answer that question as we look a little further down. Question number 14. Question number 14. What instructions did Jesus give Judas? Do it quickly. If you're going to do it, just go ahead and do it. Number 15. What was Jesus speaking about concerning God's glorification? Verse number 31. It says in verse 31, therefore, when he was gone out, as Judas, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. What was Jesus speaking about concerning God's glorification? God was going to be glorified in Jesus through the crucifixion. He's speaking specifically about the crucifixion there and talking about glorifying. So, when we pray that we might bring glory to God, we need to understand that sometimes that bringing glory to God is not exactly entailed in the way that we look at bringing glory to God is. A lot of times we think of glorifying God as in singing and praying and worshiping and that sort of thing, but in the life of Jesus, we see bringing glory to God meant that He had to offer Himself up on the cross as a sacrifice. And so that entails glorification right there, not worship necessarily. All right, go back and look at what Roy was asking about. Do we know that only John is the one that knew about that, or the other apostles did? You go down and look at start at verse number 28. It says 27. It says, after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, that thou doest, do quickly. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. So we see here that the apostles did not understand what Jesus was talking about with the instructions to Judas. John knew what was going on because Jesus said, I'm going to give him the sop. That's the one's going to betray you. We know that John knew, but the rest of them, we know that they didn't have an understanding because when he said, go out and do it, they didn't have a clue as to what he was going to do. And it says down here that they thought maybe he was sending them out to buy something for the feast, for the Passover, and what was going on around Jerusalem at this time, or that he was had instructed him to take something to the poor, do something there. So they were totally in the black, or in the dark, as far as what was going on here at the table. Number 16, how were the apostles and Jews alike and unlike in being able to follow Jesus? Verse number 33. This goes back a couple of chapters where Jesus had a confrontation with the Jews, and they didn't believe him, and he accused them of not being Abraham's seed, but being the children of the devil. And then said that where he was going, they could not be. And now he's turned around and said the same thing to his apostles. Where I'm going, there you cannot go.
I think they could die like you.
All right. So, in the unlike,
It's like not to be in old, but purpose.
okay, that would be true. He was dying for the forgiveness of sins, or for the sacrifice for the sins. They couldn't do that in going there, but
Suppose Jesus said, what do y'all do that to me? What kind of policy would that set up on the New Testament church? People die to save other people alive. Under all circumstances.
well, I think maybe he was just looking at it from the standpoint of general. We can. Well, I mean, we could offer a life in the sense of giving our life for somebody else in a tragic situation or something like that. But as far as for the sins of the world, we can't do that. There have been people in military conflicts and in desperate situations where they've given themselves for the good of the group or an individual. So it's possible to do that. But I think that Jesus was talking in general about him us not being able, or them not being able to die for the forgiveness of sins. But it was alike in the sense that they all could give their life and would give their life. Everybody died a martyr's death except for John, who we know. Number 17, how does love affect the diversity in the church? Verse number 35. What is diversity? Anybody heard anything about diversity lately? What is diversity? We should relish diversity.
Differences.
All right. All right. You can think about your background. If you're from Africa or Europe or Asia, that produces diversity.
I think though,
If
love is something that shows itself in a lot of ways. And different people show it in different ways. But there's some ways that it must show itself in all.
okay,
Not all of it.
I got you. All right, we got it. There are degrees of love, I guess. I get the point. But we see that where we come from, as far as our ancestry, that causes diversity. Y'all are rich, I'm poor, that's diversity. Some are female, some are men, that causes diversity. So we know that diverse means very expanded group of people. The question is, how does love affect the diversity in the church? How does diversity affect? How does look? Well, I think just the opposite. Yeah. Go ahead and explain. I may be wrong. I'm not saying. My questions are always still.
Some people just love each other, and some people don't, and they just pretend. Church. It's all church. But some people, they're hypocrites. And some people not. Well, I think that's what you're trying to say. I don't know.
Well, I was kind of going at it a little bit differently in that respect. I'm saying that let's just take the whole group as far as ideal situation, okay? You know, people are, you're right, people are at different stages of their faith and all that. But if we had a billionaire sitting right there and two Asians right there and somebody from the Middle East right there, and I mean not just visiting, I'm talking about in a whole, and that was the makeup of the congregation, how would love affect that?
That's what I'm trying to say. A lot of people in the church, it's
Love
like
is
a different
unconditional.
color or different something that they have on. They don't feel the same about them. It's like if they're black or something, they might not feel
But
they belong.
how does love? Love doesn't pay any attention. Yeah, love doesn't pay any attention to that. That's what I was trying to get at. Is
But if you're a Christian, you should love them.
yeah, the true application of love that Jesus is talking about here is it eliminates diversity. It gets rid of it. It doesn't make any difference where you're from, what you got, or who you are.
Completely in the church anywhere else.
Yeah.
The Bible teaches we can't control our love as much as love not the world. Love God with all your heart. The world teaches love is uncontrolled. I saw this woman and I had a wife of 10 kids at home, but I just fell in love with her and couldn't help myself. So I told her a little bit.
If you take and you apply that particular situation to church, we can control our love in the sense that no matter what the conditions or background of anybody is, we can love. And we should. I mean, that's the new commandment Jesus gave us. You're going to love, and that's how people know that we are the church, because there's not diversity among us. We're all one group of people. No, there shouldn't. Well, and that's what I'm looking at. It. True love eliminates diversity. You're looking at it from the standpoint of not having true love. Good job. We understand. Do it. Is it cold there today? Yes, right. What? Oh, late night. That's great. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're at that stage where you can't know which way to go. He was on when I came in. I'm not on. It's on the inside. 454 will be our hymn of invitation. Sorry if you're cold. We'll soon adjourn and you can go outside where it's warm. everybody tonight. I'm certainly grateful for your presence. Hope that you've benefited from your presence here tonight. I want to think for just a few minutes before we go about the church, heaven, and if I'm a part of it, I'm faithful to it, what my outlook will be. But I want to base it upon what Jesus said and something that just recently happened. Matthew chapter 16, beginning at verse 13, it says, "And when Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked the disciples, saying, Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? They said, Some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah, one of the prophets. He said unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee, also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Jesus promised to build a church. He promised that it would last forever, that the gates of hell would not prevail against it. Last week, the evening of April 15th, Oliver Latry, one of the world's greatest organists, arrived at a hotel in Vienna ahead of a planned concert. I just put my luggage down and received a text, he said in his telephone interview. It was from a friend, and it just said, Notre Dame is burning. There was a picture on the roof of the fire, and I could not believe it, of course, he added. But then a second picture arrived. He trailed off. It was like a bad dream. A day earlier, Mr. Latry, one of the three main organists at Notre Dame, had played the cathedral's grand organ on Sunday. It had been a beautiful service, he said, especially the moment when, according to tradition, a priest knocked on the cathedral's door with his processional cross and demanded to be let in. I'm not going to finish the rest of the story, but the title of the story that came offline was Notre Dame's Musicians Rejoiced that the cathedral's organ was spared. Out of all that stuff that was burned down there, they were concerned about the music that was burned in the cathedral, or the stuff that was burned down. But I saw another article, just a short two or three things down from there, said millions and millions had been sent to restore Notre Dame by billionaires. And on the line it said, don't send any more money, send it to another more needed place. If you think about the cathedral, Notre Dame, magnificent structure, building that was known for in Paris. People recognized. And seeing that building burning, going down, just caused all these people a great bit of anxiety and despair, and think about all the loss that was all involved in that. But we look at the reaction of people. You think about all that was for naught. It was really, if the building was completely lost and everything that was in it was lost, then it would really have been for nothing. But then you step back and you think about the church, the real building of God that Jesus Christ died and paid his blood for. He promised that nothing could ever destroy it. So if we're a part of that, we can know that we will not be having a problem with anxiety or worry or that sort of thing as far as the lasting of the church. That we can be secure in it, standing and being a part of it. We can be confident and secure in the fact that we will be able to stand until the end. People put so much emphasis on the physical and so little so often on the spiritual side of it. That's what I want us to think about tonight. Where is our emphasis as far as life is concerned? Is it on the physical in just a few hours' time being completely demolished and turned around and made into nothing? Or are we focused on those things which are spiritual in nature that will last for eternity, that can never be destroyed? The only way that we can be for sure that we're focusing on the right thing is if we're focusing on the church of Christ. Focusing on the fact that I'm in it by being obedient to Jesus Christ, to purchase it with his blood, who gave us the plan and the way to get into it by being obedient, and hearing, believing, repenting, confessing, and being baptized into Christ, who will forgive us sins, and then remaining faithful to it. Not been faithful to confess those sins or repent of them publicly as they are, praying to God for forgiveness, and that can put you back into the church. The church will never be destroyed. It's not going to end. Life promised for it to last forever. The only question is will I be a faithful partner? Am I at this point? God has given us time and opportunity that if we are not living faithfully or we're not a member of the Lord's church, we can make our life right and have confidence in the church, God, and the Lord. You need to make a change in your life. Christian, let me encourage you to do that now. While we stand and all the same.
What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the blood that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing can for sin atone, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Not a good that I have done, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the blood that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Thank you all for being here tonight. Hope to see you Sunday morning at 9:30 for Bible study and 10:30 for worship. We have a couple updates on our prayer list. We remember Chandler. He is home, not feeling well tonight. I think there was one more. Please pray for Franklin Bell, though is his father. He is in St. Thomas Hospital. Are there any others that I'm failing to mention at this time? Dixie Morgan. All right, Dixie Morgan is home. Please pray for her. As far as upcoming event, we do have our gospel meeting coming up in just a week and a half. We want to pray for its success, number one, and also try to encourage as many people as we can to attend to that, including ourselves.
Is the church going to provide the meat?
Ben, do we have a problem with the church providing the meat for Sunday's meal for the gospel meeting? I don't think there'll be any objection to that. And ladies can provide the sides and desserts. And meat. I'll contribute as well. Yeah, a week from Sunday.
Sign up.
Yeah, a week from Sunday. All right. Any other announcements that we need to make at this time? Justice services will be this Sunday. We just won't have a fellowship meal this Sunday. We'll have our devotion worship after our morning service. All right. Lord's Supper preparation for May. We need somebody to sign up for that as well. Anything else? All right. Ron, you might close the prayer.
Father, thank you today.